All right, so let's take a look at our guidance for assignment or task 1.4.a. And the whole point of this is to sort and filter data. So in the first example, in the first task, what we're going to be doing is sorting the data from the fastest times, because these are each of their 100-meter sprint data sets, right? So this first person, Brooke Clowney, got a time of 12.44 seconds. Rourke and Tunes, time of 11.18 seconds. We're basically storing all of the data. But the problem is, none of this information happens to be in the order that we want. So what we're going to do is we need to sort this column as our set of data. So all we have to do is click on any cell in this column and click Data, Sort Sheet by Column, C. Now, when we do this, we're obviously going to hit that error that the tutorial video showed you, but we're still going to do it just to see if it works. So when I click on this, from A to Z, we do have the fastest times showing up. However, at the bottom, all of our titles and information ended up showing up down here. So I'm going to undo this. Click this little undo button. You can also press Control Z if you like to use keyboard shortcuts. And we're going to restore it back to what it was. Because before we do that, what I need to do is click on View, Freeze, 2 rows. Because that's going to freeze or lock in these 2 rows right here. Now you notice when I scroll, that information will stay right there. So now we can click on any cell in here and click Data, Sort the Sheet. So now we have the fastest times on our data set. And we can use this information to kind of look to see how our students are doing in terms of speed. And we can also reverse sort it so that we can see the students who had the slowest times. Perhaps these students had a rough day, perhaps, something was just going wrong that they just weren't having a good sprint that day. But I'm going to swap it back to what I'm looking for, column C, A through Z, and we have the fastest students. That's the first thing that we need to do for here. That should be pretty easy, especially when it's narrated. All right, so looking at task number 2, we have the same data set, and I did move things around a little bit just so our filtering doesn't get in the way of items with merged cells. I learned a very simple lesson doing that by trying to set up the filter, and it wound up becoming a little bit problematic. But what we have here now are 3 columns again, the first name, the last name, and the time that they ran. So looking at the 100-meter sprint data for this assignment, these are the 100-meter dash times for the most recent track and field meet. We only want to see the students who completed the 100-meter dash in under 13 seconds. So we want to filter the data to make this show up. So I'm going to click the column that I have the most interest in filtering. Remember, I want to eliminate things that don't fit what I want. And I'm going to go to Data, Create a Filter. And now we have that little icon, and we can use that now to click it and put in whatever rules that we want. Now I could go through all of these and uncheck everything that's larger than 13, but we're wasting time and brain power that we could use elsewhere. Remember, we have the ability to filter by condition. We can put in a rule. We have a ton of different rules, and on the next assignment, we're going to be actually looking at this in depth. So we can format it, filter it if it's empty, if it's not empty, if the text contains information, does not contain information, starts with, ends with, is exactly. We can look at dates, and we can even look at number values, greater than or equal to, less than, equal to exactly, not equal to. We can even do between if we wanted to put information in. But looking at this info, I'm going to say less than 13, because that's the number of seconds that disqualifies a student from whatever we're trying to filter out. When I click OK, we are only left with the students who scored a time of 13 seconds or less. So that's pretty nice. All right, so now we're ready to tackle task number 3. Task number 3 is going to be a little tricky because there's no clear-cut answers that can be done in 1 or 2 clicks. A lot of this is your ability to filter through and think critically on the information. So let's see what we got. We got the movie title, So these are some really popular movies. I think I've seen every single one on this list, except for one or two. Their budget, so that's how much money they had to spend to create the movie. Their release date, so that's the date that it was released to the public. Their revenue, that's how much money that they received from the sales of the movie in movie theaters, DVDs, merchandise, all that fancy stuff. The runtime, so these are how many minutes the movie is long. And also the rating according to IMDb, which is a really popular website for hosting movie information. And we also have a blank called profit. Looks like we're going to need to figure out what to put into there. Let's scroll over though. This is a data set of movies that made more than $500 million in revenue. Answer the questions on the next sheet. That's task 3 answers. All right, you're required to explain how you found your answer. Be sure to freeze the first row before sorting and filtering. So you should know how to freeze your rows at this point. If not, look back at task 1 guidance. So we're going to freeze that. And then what you need to do is look at these questions, and this is where you'll be placing each of your answers. So we have the first column for questions, the second one for your answer, and the third column is asking how did you figure it out, where you're going to need to type in the steps that you took to figure these things out. So we'll do the first question together. We'll put in the sample answer, and we'll put in how we figured it out. So the first question, which movies had the highest budget? All right, so maybe there's 2 movies that were tied for the highest. It could just be 1 movie. We're not sure. Let's figure that out. So we're going to go into our data. Of course, I have to freeze my first row. And then all that I need to do is click on budget. And if I'm trying to find which movie had the highest budget, I'm going to need to go to data and sort the sheet by column B. Now, if I sort from A to Z, let's see what happens. All right, 10,500,000, 11 million, 18 million, 22 million. Oh, we're going up in numbers. So this is the smallest budget. Ooh, that might be an answer that we need. But if I scroll all the way down, I can see that the largest one, the largest budgeted movie, was Pirates of the Caribbean. So I'm going to copy that value, and I'm going to paste it right into here. How did you figure this out? I'm just looking for a little explanation of exactly the steps that you took to make this happen. I sorted the sheet by budget, A through Z, then scrolled to the bottom to find it. And I'll press enter to lock it in. Maybe I want to make the text wrap, so I'll click that so it looks a little bit neater. Maybe I'll even center it because I'm trying to feel fancy today. All right, so those are the type of answers and explanations that I'm looking for. Which movies have the smallest budget? Well, we already went over that actually. Step 3, or question 3, create a function in column G that is equal to the revenue minus the budget. This is the profit of the movies. Which movie had the highest profit? So that is where we have to go into this column on here and write in some sort of function. You should know how to do this. All right, let's go back to the rest of our questions. Which company had the smallest profit? I think I meant movie on here, so let's change that. What was the first movie released in this data set? So I'm looking for the earliest release date. So now, instead of us sorting by the budget, we're going to need to sort it by the release date. Okay? What was the top rated movie in this list? Sounds like we need to sort by rating. What was the most profitable movie before the year 2000? So now this is a multi-part step because now you need to have this profit column figured out, but we also need to go in and filter the data to have it before the year 2000. So we're going to have to go into release date and create a filter. I'm not going to tell you exactly what thing to do, but if you go through and uncheck all of these boxes, you're wasting time, and that's not a very good way to do this. What you could do instead is filter by some sort of condition, and there's a lot of things that you can play around with on there. I'm not going to go into the specifics, but I did want to kind of make you aware that there are a lot of choices on there. what was the most profitable movie after or during the year 2000? So now we need to find a date value that is beyond the year 2000. And then finally, what is the top rated movie released in 2014 or later? That's going to be another filtering, but then you're going to need to do an additional step of sorting by the rating. Remember, for each of these 9 questions, you have to explain how you figured it out in your own words. Don't just say sorting or don't just say filtering. Give me an explanation of exactly how you found it. I want to see what you're doing or saying to complete all of these pieces. All right, so that's what we have for 1.4.a. I hope that it was a good set of exercises that we have been able to play around with, and I hope that this is something that we all learn and grow from using spreadsheets, because sorting and filtering are incredibly valuable. In the next chapter, we're going to be looking at conditional formatting, where we can change the coloring of our cells based on the data. And then in 1.4.c, we're going to be looking at the last piece, which is building charts and graphs to help us visualize the data. Once we do all of that, we're going to move on to our unit projects, and we'll have a great time kind of accumulating or bringing all of this information together into one massive sheet. All right? So with that in mind, best of luck to everybody, and if you have any questions, don't be afraid to ask for help. Have a good one.